Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is myself, Preacher Mars, the host of the SOS show. Hope that you are having a fabulous Wednesday. We are halfway through the week, brothers and sisters. Halfway. This is hump day. You got to appreciate where you are. You know why? Because you don't want to go back to where you've been. All right. So, first of all, I want to give some shout outs to some people. We got some sick and shut in. Sister Nancy Mustafa. We want to make sure we give a shout out to Brother Kendrick Samuels. I forgot to do this earlier. Shout out to Miss Eleanor. Everybody who's on the men. Want to give a shout out to my mom, as well as other people who are just not feeling well. I just want you to know here on the shout out show, you are not forgotten. Duas out for all of you. And if you have some people that you like for us to make dua for, hit us up at permissionablepaughter@gmail.com so we can make sure that we get them on appropriately. Brothers and sisters, this show, I'm not going to say it's different or anything like that, but every once in a while, it's fun to dip back and think about where we are as opposed to where we were. Let me say it again. Think about where we are as opposed to where we were. Now, I have tried to, in my own way, comedic way, my own research way, try to really find out where we are in terms of society today. When I say society, there's a mainstream of behavior, there's a mainstream of finance, there's a mainstream of spirituality, there's a mainstream of crime and justice, all these things, gender. But today, I want to take one strand that I think is really being overlooked. While we talk about social justice and all the issue about gender roles, religion, vaccination, there's something every once in a while that you have to look at, and it has to do largely with the economy. Therefore, the name of the show today is called It's the Economy Stupid Part 2. The reason why it's part 2 is because we delved into this last year and began to look at some of the rudimentary aspects of finance here in the United States that really affected us. And now a year later, a little under a year later, it's interesting because you can kind of take those parts. Now, this will not happen magically, and I'm going to ask you and generously, I'm going to ask you to be generous with your time because sometimes putting the pieces together is not the easiest thing to do. I want to take us back to 2008 and bring us to where we are in 2021. You're talking about a span of 13 years, a span of policies, changing presidents, financial crashes, a housing crash, all those things, a pandemic. But they do have a strain. They have a backdrop that we can't overlook. And that backdrop, brothers and sisters, is the economy. So, like I said, I'm going to beg your patience because this does take a while to put this show together. I've been working on it, I want to say, probably about the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, just to have it mean something to us at a basic level, not giving us all the terms and the levers and the lexicon of economics and finance, but be able to paint a picture where everybody can kind of see themselves in the picture. All right. So that's the number one thing. Number two is I'm going to encourage everybody to think. I'm going to encourage everybody. I'm not talking about whether you're a finance person. It doesn't matter. You're king, cook, anything in between. If you have questions about some of the things I want to say today, I would encourage you to, yes, get in the chat, put up your comments, put up your questions, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I am not, brothers and sisters, an economist. I did not go to school for that. I did not study finance. But what I did learn, brothers and sisters, on the other side of not being an economist or a person trained in finances, I looked out of my community and I saw how it affected people. So part of this talk we're going to do today, part of the shout out show is going to be talking about It's the Economy Stupid, is how it affects people. Now we're going to start with something called, and you're familiar with it, it's called the big lie. I don't want to tell you what the big lie is right now because a lot of you guys are getting frustrated. I don't want you to think before we come back. I want you to reason what the big lie could be. And then we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about how this applies to you, how it applies to me, because the more we're informed, the more we're able to keep these things from repeating and happening to us over and over and over again. All right. So I'm Preacher Mars. We're going to start the show. We'll be right back. Shout out show. Let's get rolling. All right, we're back. We're going to switch up a little bit. Satan, if you don't mind, I want to make sure that we give a shout out to anybody coming on the show for the first time. We appreciate you. The rules of coming out on the shout out show are very simple. You are amongst family. Make yourself comfortable. Get yourself in the chat room. If you have something you want to say, do that. But at least get in the chat room so we can give you what affectionately is called the shout out. Now, there's some people who are already in the chat room. We call them our shout out show soldiers, shout out show family. They are a part of the gumbo that makes this whole thing work. So this conversation is not going to be had in vain or in isolation. This is a conversation we're going to have that everybody can jump into. So let me show you how it works. First off, we're going to give a shout out to Miss Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son, who's been missing in action. She didn't call her son yesterday or today, but it's okay, Mama. I love you. I see you on the show. You representing. God bless you. I'll talk to you and give you a piece of my mind later, but I'm glad to see you on the show. Next up, we got Sister Ree. Sister Ree, how are you doing? Thank you so much for being a regular on the Shout Out Show and supporting this cause and supporting this information. I think you might like the topic today because I'm going to try and break it down. In fact, this is inspired not by the economics and the finances and the woes that we deal with here. This is inspired by one of my favorite talk show guys that I watched as a child, Petey Green. So I'm going to try and break this down Petey Green style, all right, without cussing. So I'm going to try to break down Petey Green style. All right, Reed, shout out to you and your family. Thank you for coming. Sister Ika coming all the way from Indonesia, Depok, Indonesia. Hope you're doing well. Hope your daughter is feeling better. We appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your light. Sister Ika from Indonesia. Next up, we got Sister Naima coming all the way from the D. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. We hope that you having a good day, just like everybody else on the show. I hope that everybody's having a good day. We're going to talk about some things, and I hope it makes sense. This is almost in the framework with John Coltrane. We're going to start at a position. It's going to go here, go there, but we hope in the end that we're going to have a soft landing, and we're going to actually know and have discussion points about what's talked about on the show today. Sister Naima, I hope you're doing all right. Thank you so much. Next up, Altaf Rashid, our international ambassador, our Canadian ambassador to the show. Altaf, we appreciate you coming on. Altaf is going to be important because what I'm going to talk about is not just the U.S. economy. We're talking about economies that affect other economies that affect other economies. So stick by. Altaf, good to see you on the show, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Make sure the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and the other side of the border. Thank you, Brother Altaf. Next up, we got Fight the Power Word, my main man, Elijah Salahuddin, who's one of the hardest working people in the Ummah. Elijah, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you as we get into these verbal gymnastics talking about the economy. All right. Good to see you, Elijah. Appreciate you. And we got Sister Satana, our consulting producers, up on the show, making sure this thing works. Appreciate you, Sister Satana, working the back. Sister Satana is the reason why I can stand up here now and not have to have my fingers on the computer like I am. You know, we wanted this thing to seem a little bit more like TV, a little bit more presentable. We've done some upgrades. Thank you guys for your patience. We appreciate you. Is the economy stupid? That's what I was thinking as I kept doing this thing, working on this last 2 weeks. It's the economy stupid. The big lie. I'm going to read to you the big lie, courtesy of Paul Krugman's In This Depression Now. Here, brothers and sisters, is the biggest lie that's been told. And I hate to disappoint some people, but this lie was not told by Donald Trump. Let me read it to you. The big lie. I hear your complaints. Some of them are totally unfounded. It was not the banks that created the mortgage crisis. It was plain and simple Congress who forced everyone to go and give mortgages to people who are on the cusp. Be poor people, minority folks. Now, I'm not saying I'm sure that was a terrible policy because a lot of those people who got homes have them and wouldn't have gotten them without that. But they were the ones who pushed Fannie and Freddie to make a bunch of loans that were imprudent, if you will. They were the ones that pushed the banks to loan to everybody. And now we want to go vilify the banks because it's one target. It's easy to blame them, and Congress certainly doesn't want to blame themselves. At the same time, Congress is trying to pressure banks to loosen their lending standards to make more loans. This is exactly the same speech they criticized him for. That was not Donald Trump, brothers and sisters. That was Michael Bloomberg, who at the time was the mayor of New York City, speaking to Occupy Wall Street protesters. Why is this important? It's important, brothers and sisters, because you may not have noticed along the way during this whole pandemic, I call it pandemic economy. You may have noticed during this pandemic economy that we have been teetering back and forth on the fact that the U.S. economy has a great chance by the end of the year of going back into a recession. Preach, what are you talking about? I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. It is the fact that the U.S., through their own suspect financial practices, now they find themselves in a status whereby they can't pay their bills. When you hear something about raising the debt ceiling, what that means, brothers and sisters, is not they're actually raising the debt ceiling. They are deciding what of America's bills they're going to pay. All right, the ones that are already accounted for, they pay, but there are things outside of the U.S. Budget expenditures that they don't pay for. And so the debt ceiling, they play with this all the time. Here, I hate to be a spoiler alert, brothers and sisters. The debt ceiling will not be to the point whereby Congress or the Senate allows it to crash, because that would put us in an immediate recession. But because of political football that politicians kick, and we, as the citizens that they're supposed to serve, we're either in the stands watching it or we're on the field playing it. Metaphorically, we are the players and they are the NFL owners. We are the basketball players, they're the NBA owners. And it affects our economy to a way whereby we're not in a position to help ourselves. This thing that I said, and everybody should get this book if you get a chance. This is, I keep turning upside down. Paul Krugman, In This Depression Now. There are similarities to what he's talking about, because what he was talking about in 2008 was a housing crisis. What people don't understand is that when you have a recession, it takes a lot longer to get there than you think. It's not immediate. Ironically, brothers and sisters, this pandemic falls right in a space of where we would have had a recession. We had a booming economy, but it was really overheating. And the recession did something that a lot of people don't understand. The recession did an alignment, brothers and sisters, and it created a situation for the government to spend its way out of debt. We're doing the same thing now, right? We're doing the same thing now, but we're calling it stimulus. We're calling it the America Cares Act, and things like that, whereby the government is printing money that they wouldn't give it to us in a normal situation and saying, spend it. And I think people don't understand that when you take these low-end loans, what you're doing is you're taking the amount of money that the government can print, that they can print and give it to you, and you will take on a loan. This is real talk. You will take on a loan, and the money they give you, even at a low interest rate, you're paying more for the money than they actually gave you. In an effort to make sure that you think people are uplifted. No, you created another debt economy. One thing that the United States has done well, particularly with minority communities and minority, minority folks, brothers and sisters, has developed a very, very efficient communication game to make sure that you don't understand the full obligation of debt. Whereby we're starved to take on loans that will literally kill us, that we may never pay off. There was a time, brothers and sisters, There was a time where you would go through the neighborhood and you see a church, you see a liquor store, and you see a payday loan place. Church, liquor store, payday loan place. And it was the idea that you could get to people and have them, for lack of a better word, take out loans, micro loans, for minimum amounts of money, charging them maximum interest. My cousin worked at one of these payday loan places. We went to go have lunch. I went to pick him up and he was working it. And I looked on the wall and it gave everybody the amount. They never loaned any money above $1,000. Pay attention. Never loaned money above $1,000. But they put the interest rate beside it. They had stuff that was literally 300% interest if you didn't return it at the time you were supposed to do it. Now, what does this have to do with where we are now? I'm going to tell you. I've been trying to put this together. The whole idea of a PPP loan, payroll protection program, was the fact that you had to force people to take credit. Hear me now. You had to force people to take credit. I have a very sneaky suspicion that the stimulus checks that went out were tied to a tax algorithm that we're not going to find out till 10, 15 years later. You probably already paid for that money that you received 3 or 4 times over with. They're just giving it to you now. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you look at debt, and when I say debt, brothers and sisters, I mean real debt. I'm not talking about your credit cards or your mortgage. I'm talking about meaningful debt, like profound debt, sovereign debt. We are not exposed to the whole idea of how finance works for countries. Therefore, when we get information from our leaders, quote unquote, they're not giving us the full picture. One of the things that I learned when we had the housing crisis is that the government, brothers and sisters, didn't have to bail out the banks. They had to bail out all the shadow banks, meaning all these private equity firms that were loaning money to people in subprime mortgages, getting them in and repackaging these mortgages. They had to have people, a steady stream of people. And having that steady stream of people gave them the ability to go repackage and have people invest. Some say it was a Ponzi scheme. I say it was a Ponzi scheme, and because it's based on what? People being able to pay their bills. But it backfired. And when the crash happened, people lost their jobs. And people literally walked into a bank and put the keys to the house in an ashtray and walked away from the house because they knew they couldn't afford it. And in a situation whereby you've lost your job, you know you can't refinance. Therefore, there was a glut of houses. Now, the audacity part for a lot of folks was we have this situation, and the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're equally to blame. Let's just call it equally to blame. The problem was when Obama was in office, it's not that he asked for a lot of money for the TARP program. It's that he didn't ask for enough money. Because people know you only get one bite of the apple. He didn't ask for enough money. And not asking for enough money, brothers and sisters, means he had to come back to the people who didn't want to give it to him in the first place. And that, brothers and sisters, basically underlined his first term and his second term. Now, what does that mean today? Let me guys give you an example of something that happened to me. When the pandemic hit and people lost their work, I'm not immune. I remember I lost about 7.5 months of work in about, 2 weeks. Think about that. I got something from the credit card company that I had been paying my credit card. And what they did, they sent out something and said, can you give us your income statement right here, right now? This is during the pandemic. And I don't want to lie and say, well, hey, I've lost this work. This is what I think it's going to be. Let me tell you how credit is, brothers and sisters. Before the pandemic, imagine you have a credit card that's $1,000. Well, let's say it's $10,000 on a credit limit. You use 2,500. According to the use of your credit, that means you're only using 25% of it. What the credit card companies did, which is criminal and nobody picked it up, they put a new algorithm out about your earnings and all of a sudden they reduced everybody's credit limit. So where I had $10,000 and only used 25% of it, they reduced it to $5,000, and now I'm using over half of my credit. Same interest rate, same due date, half the credit, but when it goes to the credit agency or your credit rating people, it now looks like you're spending half of the credit line. Now, this is dirty, but I'm saying this is business. They practice austerity, brothers and sisters. Before we ever got to these stimulus packages, they practice austerity. The idea that they say, listen, we're going to give everybody a check, totally goes away from the fact that they have been taking money away from that process. Anyway, it was your money they were giving it to you, and they're only giving you a little bit of it. When you start thinking about some of the things that are going on, the ability to produce this amount of money, we're talking about trillion-dollar budgets, belies the fact that in 2008, they didn't ask for enough money. Even Donald Trump, who doesn't want government interference, found a way to put together a package that literally put out trillions of dollars. Joe Biden, trillions of dollars. And you say, what is that thing that they're doing? They're trying to spend themselves out of debt. But here's the problem with trying to spend yourself out of debt. There has to be alignment. There has to be alignment. One of the things I want everybody to look at is a jobs report. That we have so many jobs that are open, but we have so many vacancies. So many jobs that are open, but so many vacancies. And you say, what does that mean? Well, indicator of GDP is the amount of people who are working. The gross domestic product has to do with people who are working, not people who are off, not people who are artificially off. Because you had some people who said, wait a minute, let me look at the job market. The job I'm doing pays less than the check I'm getting for unemployment. Am I mad? No, that's their money. But the thing we can't overlook is the fact that businesses got caught with their pants down because at this point in time, they had to bring people back to the marketplace. Before the pandemic, you did have a good jobs report, but the thing that people didn't talk about was the fact that the jobs that people were saying, oh, we have all these jobs, they weren't great jobs. They didn't have sustainable wages. Hey, I got a job and it only pays $10 an hour. I'm working for the job. I need another job or 2.5 jobs to make one job. And it's real. It's real. But when you start listening and thinking about world economies, brothers and sisters, the United States has shaded the United States citizens from understanding that global economy affects the U.S. economy. One of the things they're going to be talking about here in the next couple, month or so, they're talking about it now. It's getting more steam because overseas you're having issues with global supply chain. Let me say it again, global supply chain. So if you are going to the gas pump and you see that it was $2.75 last week and now it's $2.95, that's that slow sneaking that has to do with this global supply chain. If you wanted to buy a car, the car was exponentially higher because you couldn't get parts. Because cars now have computers and the computers require parts. And now the supply chain is established. It's basically affected by the fact that you can't get the parts that you need, creating a market that's based on scarcity. Now you have a situation where the price of a new car is coming down a little bit and the price of the used car is coming out a whole lot. But you're still looking at the fact that you're not going to have the ability to access the resources to make these cars or to bring your oil. You ever look at a cell phone? One of the things about a cell phone, a used cell phone, which makes it so valuable, is the metal that's in a cell phone, the components that are in a cell phone. Old cell phone, new cell phone, they use that stuff. That stuff is literally more value than the phone is when you get rid of it, because it creates the inner workings of the phone. Even that economy, brothers and sisters, has led us to the point that now communication is at a premium. Have you looked at your Netflix lately? Or your Sirius XM? Everything is going up. It's the economy, stupid. So even when we talk about social justice, which is, of course, something very near and dear to my heart, it's still based on the economy, stupid. Defunded police, that's a budget. It's the economy, stupid. We talk about moving mountains and having mobility for justice and freedom and equality, but you can't do it without understanding basic economics. Literally, I told you about what happened during the housing crisis, 2007, 2008. Dig this. When you deal with economies, brothers and sisters, the reason you dump a lot of money into economy is so it doesn't affect another economy. Let me say it again. The reason you dump a bunch of money into one aspect of the economy is because you don't want it to affect the other economy. All of these private equity firms that put all of this money in, and they're doing the same thing now. It's just that we have to deal with vaccines. Believe me, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, all these folks are dealing with not health, but the economy. They've given us a pill of fear, a pill of reticence, and we stop asking questions. Because now, if I were to pull out a globe, if you will, and drop it down, what you would see is the haves and the have-not in terms of people who have availability to vaccines. So sickness will be the new marketplace. Sickness will be the new marketplace. And now, as we have yet another variant coming after the Delta variant, potentially, they're talking about it over in the UK. You have another round of whereby you're going to have people who are not protected, but the cost of getting protection, the cost of getting a vaccine is now double and triple because we're dealing with scarcity. And in a market that's built on scarcity, it takes no prisoners. It takes no prisoners. The big lie, brothers and sisters, that Trump has told, the big lie that Bloomberg told, was the fact that this effort, this financial effort, was based and solely focused on low income, minority people who weren't able to get housing the normal way, through Freddie Mac and companies like that. The big lie is they sent that money out to everybody. Blacks, Latinos, single women. You were the last one to get the money. Everyone else got the money. Everyone else got these loans, these subprime loans. And when the bottom fell out, they focused it and said, no, it was these people. In this economy right now, you have the same thing. And this economy is going to be a blame economy. We will frame it on blame. And so the people that you see doing the insurrections and things like that, and the big lie, they're the same ones who were there in 2008. They funded where we are right now. And I say funded, I mean by miscommunication, false information, and feeding to the fear and the insecurity. I'll tell y'all something. One thing about COVID is it put front and center the fear, anxiety, and in some cases, brothers and sisters, paranoia of white America. It let you see that they were scared about losing their houses. This is the thing that didn't happen back in 2008. It happened a little bit. But the subprime loans and no doc loans and all that, they showed you a little bit. Oh, but the pandemic was much worse. Not only are you losing your house and your livelihood, hell, you could lose your life. And even now, we have an economy of people who want folks to believe that a vaccination is bad. Okay, vaccination is bad, but what are your alternatives other than the conversation we're having right now? You can say, hey, look at the science, trust the science. Yeah, I can read just like everyone else could read, but it's also making the connection. Brothers and sisters, in 2021, and we'll come back. Satana, remind me, in 2021, we're going to come back and see if we are in the throes of a recession at the end of the year. So listen, I know I've gone off a little bit, brothers and sisters. I appreciate your patience. This is a very wide topic, and hopefully we'll do It's the Economy Stupid 3, inshallah. But I'm going to go ahead and get off, and I want people to go ahead and get back. But I do want you to think, when you read things and you see things about this economy, understand that there's a situation scenario that's been occurring, and they haven't brought it to you. So guess what you have to do? You got to investigate. All right. So let's go ahead and get to our sponsors. Talking about economics, I want to give a shout out to my brother, Johnny L. Thomas. What's up, JT? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me see. All of my credit cards. There you go. All my credit cards were reduced by 70%. JT, and then we didn't even talk about it. I'm just putting it out there. This is a credit card I paid on time, and da-da-da. They kept doing it. What's going on, brother Eric Carter? What's up, Big E? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to wrap up. Let's go ahead and get to our sponsors. I want everybody to check out BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Get to learn about your money, how to get your money to work for you. If you don't want to go to the website, call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-800-496-6845. All right? As well, if you want to get your mind working, check out the Bayan Islamic Graduate School. You can go to Bayan online. They're filling in for the spring, brothers and sisters. You got to check it out. An incredible program. I vouch for it personally. Check them out at Bayan online. So listen, that's our show. If you have any questions about this show, please go to permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Again, that's permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. And let's keep this conversation going because, we can't live with any more big lies. I'm Preacher Moss. You guys have been great. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcasts at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out.